I mean, again, it was really just during the pandemic, it became very clear to me that the world was on the wrong path.
Hmm.
And one of the ways that it's on the wrong path, I think, is that people do not think for themselves. We don't have agency in our own lives, so we rely on others to live our own lives, to make our own decisions.
Hmm.
And and to put another way, centralization, right? I think centralization is one of the problems, because centralization defers responsibility and authority to someone else. And Bitcoin is such a powerful tool because it allows the individual to take that back. And I think to change the path that we are on and to create a better world, step one is realizing our own power. And I do not know any tool available in the world that does that better than Bitcoin. I think the simple existence of Bitcoin, just becoming a user and learning about how the system works, encourages people to view themselves through a different lens and to realize their own power, and their own agency, right? That they can make their own decisions, that they can be responsible for their own actions. So yeah, I thought that, and it's not something different about me from our Bitcoin, um, is that we're really focused on people who are not Bitcoiners, right? We're
Hmm.
not not we're not trying to further educate people who are already have some education on Bitcoin, some that already have like a good knowledge base. It's not technical. It's the concept is to bring new people into the space. And specifically, in the developing world, I think a country like El Salvador is really going to lead the charge. So, my two touchstones are really Ecuador and New York. Those are the two
Hmm.
places where I've lived the longest and where I have the most friends and contacts. I know a lot of people in New York that had Bitcoin. None of them really used it though. They had Bitcoin as an investment.
Hmm.
In Ecuador, and Ecuador has a pretty similar profile to El Salvador. They were dollarized literally in the same year. They're relatively small Latin countries. Um, People could really use it in Ecuador for a number of reasons, for censorship resistance, just to have more control over remittances. Like there's real use cases in Ecuador, and I didn't know anyone that had Bitcoin in Ecuador. Like, and that's the place where it's actually needed, between the two, between Ecuador and New York.
Hmm.
So my thought was also that for Bitcoin to succeed in the right way, it has to be led from the bottom. It has to come from a place like Ecuador or El Salvador. It will not come from a place like New York.
Hmm.
If we allow a place like New York to lead it, then I think it will very likely be co-opted by
Hmm.
by the system that we really want to replace. Right? There's a danger that Bitcoin loses its edge, right? Um, if it just becomes like a stock, like just this investment tool, like that's not its power. That is not the power of Bitcoin. Uh, so like I already had the thought in my head that the real revolution would be led from the bottom. It would be led from people who have not benefited from the legacy system. People who are benefiting from the legacy system are not motivated to change it. The people who are motivated to change it, to take risks, right? Like it's a risk for El Salvador to adopt
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Mm.
But a country like El Salvador or again Ecuador, they're not benefiting from the legacy system. The legacy system is not helping them, right? It's keeping them, it's entrenching them in a power dynamic in which they don't get to decide, right? They already don't control their currency, right? So it's always going to come from people who don't have the advantages in the legacy system. They will always be the ones that lead the charge to create something better.